It is clearly evident that rugby as a sport in the United States is growing at a steady rate year after year. However, that growth is largely dependent on making rugby accessible at all levels of play across America, as well as generating much-needed funds to support various rugby initiatives. The USA Rugby Trust has taken on this honourable role, and we have the pleasure of speaking to its acting executive director, Chris Reed. Chris, thank you for speaking with us here at the Rugby Business Network.
My pleasure. Thanks for the time today.
Firstly, Chris, for how long has the USA Rugby Trust been around, and what are the main areas the Trust focuses on a daily basis?
Sure, right. So the Trust was established in 2012 to support the basic annual operating expenses and needs of USA Rugby and all the programs. I would say that's largely the focus of our daily work at the Trust, anywhere from creating newsletters, solicitations specifically geared toward particular programs or national teams, stewardship of those gifts, and communicating with our donors as frequently as we possibly can.
Well, the Trust is heavily involved in providing support to USA Rugby Programs and national teams. Can you mention some of these programs?
Oh, sure. It runs the gamut of everything within the union in USA Rugby, from what we would call the youth development or grassroots level of youth programming, all the way through high school, collegiate, club side, referee scholarships, and of course the national teams. I would say that the focus on some of the programs and on the teams, whether it's men's or women's, 15s or 7s, is a bit cyclical based on the major contests for rugby around the world, between World Cup qualifying, which we just had. So World Cup lead up, Women's World Cup is just a month away in Ireland, as you know, and so we have a cyclical focus on the national team programs based on major competitions, HSBC 7 Series, Sevens World Cup, and so forth.
That's absolutely brilliant. Well, Chris, financial support from corporate donors is obviously what allows the USA Rugby Trust to create these programs and get involved in charitable initiatives. Do you find it difficult, though, to get businesses to donate towards rugby when sports like American football, basketball, baseball, they're the more popular ones in the country and perhaps can generate more exposure for a business?
Oh, sure. Well, the majority of contributions to support USA Rugby through the Trust at this point to date have largely been from individual contributors, and the majority made up of the USA Rugby membership, the players, coaches, and referees within the USA Rugby Union. So the corporate philanthropic support is coming, and it does make a tremendous impact. I think it's interesting when you talk about philanthropy versus corporate sponsorship. I would say that there are large corporations that do support some of those professional sports and perhaps the foundations tied to those individual organizations or to the national football organization or basketball. But obviously the corporate sponsorship gets more exposure than the charitable support does. It's always a challenge, but I think it's a conversation that a lot of companies haven't really considered when it comes to supporting USA Rugby or rugby in general around the globe. And I think it's definitely a market and an avenue for charitable contributions that we need to focus on here in the U.S., and I know that other RFUs are doing the same.
Well, I'm sure that receiving financial aid from donors is most welcome in helping the Trust support its various programs, although I'm sure that you are always open to other forms of support from businesses and individuals. How else can the USA Rugby Trust be assisted?
I think, and this may be a bit of a long answer, but most large corporations have their CSR, their corporate social responsibility. Oftentimes that has to do with the environment or social concerns around the globe. And I think that one piece, of course, being a rugby person myself, I think one piece that many companies and individuals within corporations are sort of forgetting is that the rugby playing population is large. And we literally exist in each and every facet of business in the U.S. and abroad. And if we can tap into that, some of the things that a corporation could do is, for instance, at USA Rugby, there's a weekday touch rugby lunchtime event where the employees that choose to can go out and have a run around and play some touch rugby. It's a great way to build camaraderie. Utilizing rugby coaches as corporate leadership trainers is another great way to engage the rugby population within a corporation. There are a number of ways to assist the trust directly, which would be hosting watch parties, underwriting an event, providing a space for a clinic, coaching education clinic, a coach discussion, a club meeting space. There are a number of ways beyond just charitable dollars that folks can be involved. Volunteer at a youth rugby camp or a touch rugby camp. Volunteer with our event staff at USA Rugby to help manage the various aspects of putting on an international competition domestically.
Well, it's great that there are so many avenues available to provide support. Chris, when we speak about organizations like the USA Rugby Trust, which are making a massive difference to the sport we love, we keep asking ourselves this question: why should businesses contribute towards charitable organizations in a sustainable way and not just on once-off occurrences?
Sure, yeah, and I think maybe I've already touched on that a little bit. It's one of the fastest growing sports it is the fastest growing sport in the United States. So other than just community involvement, which I've mentioned, or the health and well-being of employees within an organization, there's that attachment to a national governing body and the USA red, white, and blue, if you will, colors presented at multinational competitions around the globe. To be a corporate partner and involved with USA Rugby and the sport of rugby puts companies in front of another set of consumer eyes that maybe they haven't considered. And as rugby people, you're probably well aware of this, we're very loyal in things that we support as a community, as a team. So we're very brand friendly, I guess I would say, from the club level all the way through the ranks of participation in the States and abroad.
Absolutely. Well, from what you have witnessed firsthand over the years, Chris, where do you feel the most support is needed to grow rugby in America? Is it at the national levels, the colleges, or at schools and youth level?
It's really all of the above. Again, support from a charitable contribution viewpoint. It is cyclical. I'll borrow some words from USA Rugby CEO Dan Payne, which he mentioned at an event recently, that youth rugby are the 401k for rugby in the United States. Meaning the more we can grow the base of our participation and build the pathway through to the national teams and grow the sport on a national level for exposure to corporations, potential sponsors, beyond the life skills and the camaraderie and the team building that you learn and you are immersed in when you begin playing rugby at any age. So I guess the youth level is definitely a strong focus for USA Rugby right now, but support for rugby in the U.S. is needed at all levels, and probably that pathway from identification around the middle to high school age years through university to potentially be a USA Eagle, to build our player pool for national competition.
Well, it's brilliant that you're taking a broad approach to development. But Chris, for you personally, why did you decide to get involved in the USA Rugby Trust?
Oh, sure. So I was fortunate enough to be, I've been involved in rugby myself since I was, like most folks in the U.S., we start playing when we're in college. For my age, there wasn't a lot of high school rugby or youth rugby available then. So I started when I was in college. I've had rugby in my life for many years, local administrator, and when the previous CEO mentioned that USA Rugby was establishing a fundraising entity, the USA Rugby Trust, I had expressed interest at the time, offered to be a volunteer in any way that I could. And within a few years, a position became open, and I jumped at a chance to do the work that I do as a fundraiser, which has been my career path for the last almost 20 years, and also put my passion for rugby into my work as well.
Good on you, Chris. Well, for those that have been to the website www.usarugby.org, they will see that you have held some fantastic events in the past to raise funds. What are some of the up-and-coming events people should look out for that they can get involved with?
Oh, sure. So most immediately, we'll have a send-off dinner for the USA women's national team before they depart for Ireland at the end of July in Washington, D.C. And then we are in the process, and we'll have a number of events around both national and international competition in late 2017 through 2018. Sydney, Australia, Hong Kong Sevens, Las Vegas Sevens, of course, here held in the U.S., around for the HSBC series. And all with an eye to generating support for USA Rugby in all of the programs as we gain momentum to 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan, and then, of course, 2020 Olympics also in Japan.
Fantastic. Well, finally, Chris, how can businesses and even members of the Rugby Business Network help the USA Rugby Trust grow so that it can provide assistance to even more programs and initiatives?
Any participation at any level, whether, again, some of the things I've mentioned, ability to host an event in a major metropolitan area where there's both a strong Rugby Business Network presence and a strong rugby community presence. Again, those can range from a watch party to a networking or leadership type of event, to reaching out to us and offering to support either a dinner, an event, or become a corporate partner with USA Rugby Trust. There are a number of different levels, and I would encourage everyone to visit both usarugby.org, and also you can get directly there through usarugbytrust.org.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you for the selfless work you and your fellow philanthropists are doing at the USA Rugby Trust. And we at the Rugby Business Network only want to see the organization continue to grow and support rugby.
Well, thanks for the time. Really appreciate the partnership with Rugby Business Network and past events, and we look forward to doing more in the future. Thank you.